career path and tips for Young Academy. Today, we're here with Professor Liliana Bove from the University of Melbourne. Liliana, in terms of your perspective, what would be some of the tips for Young Academy for, say, teaching and research?
All right, Park. So just give me some context. Are we talking about they've got a job at the moment,
So
or
let's
they're
say,
trying to go for a promotion, or,
yes,
is it
a very good question. So let's start with, say, academy who a PhD student who just graduated from their PhD, like what they
okay, so
should
they're looking
focus
for a
on.
job. They're
Yes.
looking for a job. All right. Well, hopefully, they don't look for a job after they've graduated, that the process has begun much earlier into perhaps their final year of their PhD. I think that's really important for them, even earlier than that, to start positioning themselves, branding themselves, creating a strong meaning around who they are and their identity. And that comes from obviously going to conferences and presenting and meeting other people that are in the domain that the particular student is interested in researching or becoming an expert in. So
Yes.
who's attending your presentations?
Yes.
Do you know everyone else that works in that area? Can you introduce yourself? And so very much it's about creating awareness of your personal brand. So it would be really dangerous not to have done that sort of preliminary work, or wait until you actually submit your thesis
Yes.
to begin that sort of profiling work. So
You have made
I
a
would
very
start
good point
early.
there. Yes, you have made a very good point in terms of personal brand. And personal brand is not something that you can have overnight. So
No.
there used to be a saying like 10 years ago when when I did my PhD 10 years ago, there used to be a saying that, oh, hey, look, wait till year 4, year 5, and then you do teaching, and then you do research, and then you go conference. It doesn't seem to be the case nowadays because, say, if you really wait until year 3, 4, and 5, it might be too late to build that personal branding.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we have a policy that we don't allow students to teach until they've confirmed.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a 5-year program. And so 2 years, it's coursework. And then the first year of the PhD, you could say, because that's master's, but the first year of the PhD, which is year 3, of, I guess, their scholarship of the 5-year program, they need to be confirmed before we allow them to do any sort of tutoring. So sometimes you're governed by the policies that of the department or university that you're working in, but definitely teaching and getting expertise first, dabbling as a tutor, and then if you can, a stream convener, being able to teach one of these streams, perhaps at postgraduate level, and then getting some expertise in your final year as a subject coordinator, where you can showcase your creativity and experimentation, and innovations in teaching.
Yeah, that is very interesting, Liliana. So, and that's also enhance why we should, work from the office so that we can see other people to build connection, build brand image, and link to opportunities in teaching and in research. Now, when we talk about research, do you think that PhD student or people who are about to finish their PhD should try to say involve themselves into a research project, like a real research project from like a grant body, that type of thing?
I think the priority obviously is to publish from your PhD. So, and then again, I would suggest a portfolio approach where you've obviously, I mean, ideally, we really recommend a 3-paper approach with our structure of PhDs. So ideally, it would be great to target each of those papers to a A-star journal.
Yes.
But I mean, obviously you need to showcase that you can publish. So perhaps that's a very risky approach
Yes.
if you target each to an A star. So at least if you have one A star and, sorry, 1 or 2 A stars, or at least 1 A star and then some A's, then at least you'll be able to showcase that you can actually write and lead a project under the supervision of your supervisors. Now, so I think that would be your priority. But in saying that, when we interview early career researchers, or particularly someone that's just finished their PhD or are in their final year of their PhD, we need to see that they've got a basically some ideas about where to next,
Yes.
and how they're going to leverage what they've done to basically build on that research stream. So we need to make sure that they have something that's going to sustain them in the future, that once they're, you know, basically have published from their PhD, that they're not dried up, and therefore there's going to be a number of years in which perhaps they're just catching up or trying to start new projects. So and especially if we're recruiting from overseas, we need to make sure that they've got their networks quite established, that they're not going to be floundering or lost when they, you know, come all the way to Australia. So have they thought about, you know, what's cooking? Okay.
Yes.
Obviously their PhD, they've got to publish from their PhD. That's going to be the priority, because I don't think there's ever going to be a time in their career, or your career, or my career, where we can really focus on research as we have during our PhD. We're really getting that dedicated time, and there's so much competing distractions when you're an academic as part of your academic job, that you're not going to be able to be as focused as you were on your PhD in terms of dedicating time
You
to
have made a
research.
very good point there for PhD candidate. Now, let me touch very briefly. So let's say if someone is a lecturer and going to become a senior lecturer in the future, or looking for promotion to a senior lecturer, in terms of the research project or publications, they used to be saying that the more papers, the better. I disagree with that nowadays. So is it something that you see that in terms of the quality of the paper, it is actually more important than the number? And when we talk about quality, in the A star itself, there are many category of, say, you know, the A star, or do you think like FT50 is better than, say, some of the ranking that you might be prefer or use?
Yeah, again, it depends on the institution.
Yes.
So you really got to know what is the normative behavior and how you're rewarded. So different workload models obviously are conducive to different types of behaviors. So we all work towards our workload model.
Yes.
So, you know, I know a lot of organizations or a lot of institutions really focus on grant money. I've been fortunate that hasn't been, I mean, we're encouraged.
But not forced to.
We're facilitated,
Yes.
but we're not forced.
Yes.
So there are some unwritten laws or rules that you would expect that if I'm going up for promotion to an associate professor, that at least I've shown that I can attract some external funding.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
But if I'm going from a level B to a level C, perhaps the expectations necessarily aren't there. And again, it depends on the discipline. So if I was working in medicine, the expectations are definitely there that I'm attracting a lot of external funds.
Yes.
We're not necessarily in the Faculty of Business and Economics.
That is
so
actually really good.
know the ground rules, know
Yes.
the normative behaviors, and I guess understand how you're going to be incentivized. So unfortunately, the incentives do lead to some pretty perverse behaviors sometimes, and we have to be very careful about that.
That is a very good suggestion in terms of understanding the the expectation of the institution. Some university might prefer
Absolutely.
this way, some university might prefer another way, and also depend on the discipline and the level that we are expecting to apply for as well. So that is very good. And your suggestion about, be careful of the incentive in the bad way is
Yeah, the
very
unintended
important.
consequences and what that may lead, at the end of the day, you would hope that you do research for the search of truth, right?
Yes,
And to improve managerial practice.
exactly.
But if we're incentivized in a particular way, then sometimes that gets lost in the background.
Yes. So we
And
all
the
should be
two
careful.
not necessarily are correlated. You
Yes.
see where
Yeah.
I'm coming from? But I would suggest in all cases, do your best work.
Mm,
And your best work, sometimes the results or what you expect aren't necessarily there or don't come across. So then pitch accordingly. So best work, hopefully best outlet, but
yes,
sometimes it doesn't happen.
exactly.
Or you have other pressures. So yeah, again, I think what you want to display is that you can hit those top journals given support,
Yes.
that you are, at the end of the day, you do come up with really cool ideas, and you can make a theoretical contribution. I think it's easier to make a practical contribution. And then obviously what I always term get out of jail cards. So do enough so that they leave you alone. Yeah.
That is a very good
Um,
suggestion. Yes. Yes.
because the last thing you want to be doing is having to defend yourself as an academic.
Yes.
So know what the minimum performance standards are. Try and take risks to meet those, to reach for the stars, but don't be so silly that you just reach for the stars and forget about your daily bread. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because then you can get the time to take the risks. And that's the problem. A lot of us don't take risks because it means,
If you
I
miss,
guess,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
you
some
know
people
what I
feel like if they
mean.
miss it, they miss it. So it's depend on which some people might want to take risk halfway and then some project not as risky or depend on what
Correct,
suits to them
correct,
and all that.
correct.
Yes.
So
But
get
that is a
some
really great one.
productivity in the basket so that they leave you alone, that you won't be
Yes.
pulled over the coals for not producing anything this year, or you don't, and it's a balancing act as well,
Yes.
because I firmly believe that all academics should be teaching,
Mm,
right?
yes.
um Degrees of teaching is another issue, and how you teach is another issue, but I think yes, we've got a responsibility for the engagement, for the teaching, for the research, for the service. And I don't believe, particularly in a business context, that I don't necessarily believe in research only positions. And that could be controversial, but I think we have a responsibility for the great researchers to do research led teaching in the classroom.
I agree with you. Whatever we research on, we should bring that to the teaching as well and also adopt or adapt to businesses as a
If we're
practical
lucky, if we're lucky to get to
and test that.
teach,
Yes.
in our subject matter
Exactly. Exactly.
expertise.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I may, I might touch the last question briefly about service and community engagement. So let's say I have received a lot of questions, especially at the end, Smack asking, what is a good service role, Park, for a lecturer level? What is a good service role, in your opinion, Liliana, that would support them and help them for the long term?
Yeah, I'd probably avoid being a program director or a PhD director unless you're
Yes.
in a very small university.
Mm.
Okay, so small pond and big fish sort of mentality.
It's lots of work.
Um, yeah, I would avoid those sort of, I think they really should be pitched for someone trying to get to associate professor
Mm,
or even professorship, especially deputy head. And the program directorships can be quite heavy workloads as well.
yes.
Um,
I can
so
support your view in that because I was the program director of the Mass of Marketing when I was a lecturer. There was a lots of things happen, especially,
yeah,
soon after that COVID hit, lots of decisions have to be made by a junior academics is quite difficult.
and not only that, I don't think at the end of the day you're given the agency
Mm,
when you are at that level to
yes,
make strategic decisions. So you
exactly.
tend to be more operational,
Yeah,
having to deal with the one-to-one sort of what I see as the boring parts of the job, the admin, the
yes,
operational parts, the tasks that are associated with the job. But you don't make the big decisions because you don't have the status, right? So someone in the leadership team is going to be making the interesting directional strategic decisions. And so that's the problem about taking on those roles at a
mm,
junior level because you don't have the voice.
yes,
Well, it'd be rare for you to have the voice. And even if you did have the voice, they
yes,
would probably dismiss it because you haven't been around long enough to be able to have a whole of university perspective.
yes.
Um, so be a good citizen. And so that means going to all the meetings, the departmental meetings, maybe joining the research committee, joining ethics committee. So being a member of a committee would probably be a sensible approach. And
Mm,
showing your face,
yes.
just having presence um, at different events, different seminars, just having presence. I would say that would be being collegial.
Well, thank you very much for your suggestion and then conversation today. And here we go, everyone. We have career path tips for young academic from Professor Liliana Beauvais from the University of Melbourne. Thank you so much,
Thank
Lilian.
you, Park.
Thank you.